Welcome to the GOAZCATS.com Arizona basketball season preview. I'm Troy Hutchison, joined alongside Matt Moreno. And Matt, Tommy Lloyd, first season as Arizona men's basketball head coach, had a whole entire offseason to get ready. And it's been a different change of pace for the Wildcats this season.
Yeah, it feels like he's been here for about a year already. I know it's been a long several months leading up to this moment for Arizona, getting an opportunity to take the floor officially at McKale Center and begin the season, begin the Tommy Lloyd era. Yeah, it's a different style, kind of a different feel around the program, it feels like. Definitely more laid back. It has kind of been my impression of just Tommy Lloyd, kind of taking things as they come. We've talked to him recently about recruiting. They only have one commit at this point as they begin the season. Doesn't seem all too concerned about that. Doesn't seem too concerned about his team, and all the pieces they're trying to fit together. He's just kind of taking things day by day and working through the process. Obviously, a first-time head coach, but he's been at one of the top programs in the country for a very, very long time and helped build that program to be where it's at today. And so I just think he feels very comfortable with what he wants, with what his vision is, and I think he also understands that it's going to take time for everything to fall into place. And so, yeah, just a different vibe, a lot more laid back, a lot more relaxed, not very many tense moments or anything like that. Just kind of a general, feeling of being relaxed and comfortable. And so that's a good thing, I think, for Tommy Lloyd as he begins. He's not going to be too nervous about, stepping on the floor as the head coach for the first time. I think a lot of people are underrating this team. So there's not going to be a ton of, huge expectations for this Arizona team like there were every season for Sean Miller, where it felt like it was Final Four or bust. I think there's still going to be those Arizona fans who say this team has to get to the Final Four or it's a lost season. But I think all the pieces are in place for them to surprise some people. A lot of talent returning, but I think the thing that everyone is looking to, and I think that's going to make fans most excited, is the style of play. They're going to run, they're going to go fast, and they're going to try and score a lot of points and play up tempo. And when you talk to every recruit, which I've done for a lot of years now, the first, couple things they talk about is, freedom and wanting to run. And Tommy Lloyd is going to offer them both of those things. It sounds like the players are really excited about having an opportunity to play in this system, and it fits a lot of their style of play, it fits a lot of their skill sets, and they're going to be off and running. And it's going to be, I think, an entertaining style of play, and it'll be interesting to see kind of how all the pieces come together because they have a ton of new pieces, as you would expect at Arizona. Even though Sean Miller's not around anymore, it's still all about roster turnover, and for Arizona, there's a lot of new faces.
Yeah, it's not your typical roster usually. I mean, you have a lot of athleticism, a lot of up and down running of the court. Like you said, I think it matches their skill set. And when you take a look at this roster, it's been transfers, the addition of transfers for Arizona and Coach Tommy Lloyd. That's been a huge part of building and rounding out this roster.
Yeah, I mean, there's going to be, it'll be very interesting to see how he kind of comes up with his rotation. I think that's going to be kind of the big thing to watch early in the season as they get going, as the season begins, because there are a lot of options, and a lot of those transfers, they're here because they want to play. They didn't come to Arizona because they want to sit on the bench and watch everyone else. And so I think, to me, we'll see how it ends up playing out, but it feels like Pelle Larsson is the most important transfer of the group. I think there's going to be other players who factor in. Kim Aiken Jr. from Eastern Washington is someone who has had a really strong preseason. Every chance we've had an opportunity to see him, whether it's in practice or in the red blue game or the exhibition, he's come up big, has shown that he can be a shooter, has shown that he can be versatile on both ends of the floor. And so I think he's going to be important. I think Justin Kier is going to play an important role, especially early in the season as the backup point guard and a true leader on this team. But Pelle Larsson is the one I'm probably most excited about and most eager to see. He's coming off a foot injury that he suffered this offseason, but as Arizona gets going, he's expected to play in the opener, and then at that point, you'll see kind of where it goes from there. Tommy Lloyd isn't sure how much he's going to play early on, but I think as he gets more comfortable and as they kind of figure out what his role is on this team, I think he's going to factor in a big way. And I don't think it'll be a surprise if you look back and he ends up being, one of the top two players on this team. I think he's that good. Obviously, everyone's going to talk about Ben Mathurin, Azuolas Tubelis, but I think when all is said and done, Pelle Larsson is going to be involved in that conversation of being, one of the top players on this team, and maybe even the top player. I know, everyone is expecting Ben Mathurin to be an NBA type of player, NBA caliber player, and I think he's going to be very good this season. But don't sleep on Pelle Larsson being, one of the top players, if not the top player on this team. I think he has a lot of talent. Everyone, you talked to Dalen Terry this week. He mentioned he's someone that has gotten better. Dalen Terry obviously got to see him firsthand last year when Pella was at Utah, and he says he's much better. And so he had a strong season last year, and I think he's someone I expect to play a really big role in this team, as they get going towards the end of the season.
And Pella, coming off of that foot injury that he suffered during the offseason, has integrated his way back into the court. And Tommy mentioned that he will probably receive some minutes opening night against NAU. He doesn't know what that's going to look like. But if Arizona can get a fully healthy Pelle Larsson for Pac-12 play, that's going to be a huge addition.
Yeah, I mean, I think he's just so versatile. He has great size, can handle the ball a little bit. He potentially is someone who could play the point. So I think he just can do so much and has the size to do a variety of things on the floor that, it only makes sense to get him out there as much as you can. And I think he's going to be a real vital piece to this team.
Now, when you look at that point guard position for Arizona, a lot of question marks around that. There's not that natural point guard that Arizona's had over the years, whether it be Sean Miller-led teams, Lute Olson-led teams. You think of great point guard play with Arizona. And right now, it's Kirk Reese going to be the starting point guard. Justin Kier, the backup. Pelle Larsson might be in that role when he's fully healthy. We'll see how he integrates to that. But we've seen a lot out of those three. Well, out of the two, especially because Pella's been hurt, but a lot out of the two that they're very different in their style of play that we've seen in practice.
Yeah, I mean, I think Arizona is going to go. Their season will be based a lot on what happens at the point guard position.
Mm-hmm.
Kirk Reese is going to be interesting. I think he's someone who's going to have to get a feel for the position. I think he's going to have to take care of the basketball. I think that's going to be a huge part of the emphasis for him early in the season is going to be his ability to take care of the basketball, because I think naturally this system fits him. But as we've seen, and one of their biggest issues so far this preseason has been turning over the basketball. They're just not used to playing this fast. Sean Miller, as much as he liked to say he wanted to go fast, they just didn't. And so I think it's a change of pace for everybody. I think those returning players are getting used to a different style. Justin Kier's played in this type of system a little bit previously at Georgia, but it's an adjustment for him too. But I think where Kirk Reese is, he's kind of in between positions, and that's the difficult part. Is he's not a true point guard. As much as he's going to have to play that role, he's not a true point guard. Everyone knows about his shooting and knows that he is capable of making 3-point shots. I'd like to see him be more efficient. I think he's had some issues with just kind of taking a bunch of shots, and we saw that in the exhibition. I mean, he was not afraid to fire off some 3-pointers, and so it'll be interesting to see kind of how he reins that in and if he's able to have a little bit more efficiency from the 3-point line. But I think he's somebody that has to really hone in on being a true point guard, because that's what they're going to need him to be. Yes, the opportunities to score are going to be there, but they really on this team need someone who's going to take care of the ball and figure out a way to distribute and facilitate. I think that responsibility is going to fall on a few guys. I think the perimeter players are going to be able to facilitate just as much as the point guard is, but I think this season is going to be predicated a lot on what happens at the point guard spot. And at least early on, that's going to be on Kirk Reese. And I think you want to see him raise his level of play. We only have a small sample size of what he's capable of doing. Only got to play at the end of last season, but I think he needs to raise his level of play. And there's going to be a lot of pressure on him to be that guy that distributes and really runs the offense for Tommy Lloyd.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think my personal biggest concern not only is the turnovers that Arizona accumulated during this offseason, during the preseason, before the regular season, but also shot selection for Kirk Reese. I don't think he's seen a 3-pointer that he doesn't like. Just knowing when to take that shot and when's a good time to pass the ball. I'm not saying that it's bad shot selection, but trying to get the offensive rhythm going for the rest of the team more so than yourself.
Yeah, that's going to be key. I mean, I think for all the players that are handling the ball, I think it's going to be about how efficient are you, how many assists do you have versus your turnovers, and try and play fast and play controlled at the same time. And I think that's going to be one of those early hurdles for Tommy Lloyd, is trying to figure out how his team can best play at the pace he wants to play, but also aren't giving the ball away a ton of times either.
And then another position for Arizona that's going to be critical for the Wildcats is that center position, because Christian Coloco, I mean, you see the talent. There's a lot of raw talent there. Arizona fans have seen him progress, not fast, but steadily underneath Coach Miller. And this offseason, when we got to see him in practice, we got to see him in the red and blue game. He shined in those moments. And Tommy Lloyd in the exhibition game, Christian had 14 and 10 and said, that's not his best game.
Yeah, and I was hoping we were going to talk about Christian because outside of Pelle Larsson, I think I'm most eager to see what Christian Coloco can do this season. Probably more later in the season once they get into some of these tougher non-conference games, get into Pac-12 play, because that's where you're really going to be able to measure what type of player he is. But Tommy Lloyd has been pretty consistent in that he believes Christian Coloco has a chance to be an all Pac-12 type of player. And so nothing we've seen up to this point makes me say he's completely wrong. There has been a development that's happened with Christian Coloco over this offseason. He just looks more comfortable in who he is and what his role is and what his job is. Umar Ballo it feels like he needs a little bit more development, a little bit more time to get familiar with, his teammates and the system. Even though this is similar to what Tommy Lloyd and they ran at Gonzaga. But Christian Coloco, I think, is going to be that guy at the center position. They don't really have anybody else like him. He obviously is very capable of being a shot blocker, but his offensive game has developed as well. Who knows if we'll ever see him take another three-pointer? He made the one that he attempted in the game against Eastern New Mexico. But if he is able to add that to his game in any way, it's going to be a difference maker for him, and people are going to have to respect it, and defenses are going to have to step out and say, you know what, we can't just sag off him. We have to step out and at least contest it a little bit. So I think that'll be big for him if he can work that into his game. But I think what Arizona just wants him to see is similar to Azuolas Tubelis. They just want to see him be dominant. They're capable of being dominant big men, and they need to just see that more often. A lot of times I think Christian Coloco, obviously kind of a slight frame. He's built out a little bit more. I think he's bulked up, added some good weight, added some good muscle. He needs to start using it and being able to, be more physical and control things offensively in the paint and have just more success scoring. Obviously he's going to get, those big dunks and get, things that are cleaned up around the basket, but this system really fits him well. He's a big man who can run. He can play in transition. And so, when they do get on a fast break, I think he's going to be someone who has a lot of success because, a 7-footer is hard to stop when he's running down the lane. And so there's not going to be a lot of, defenders that are able to keep up with him. And so you have to take advantage of that. But I really think based on what we've seen so far, it feels like he's ready to take that next step in his career. And maybe that ends with him being, a Pac-12, an all Pac-12 player. But regardless, I think he's ready and he looks ready to kind of take that next step in his career.
Yeah, with all that we've gotten to see during practice and the red and blue game and the 2 exhibition games, I'm really excited to see him during the regular season. It's that old basketball adage in terms of the type of big that you want. If you can run, rebound, and roll, you're going to be a huge asset for your team, especially a team that runs up-tempo offense like Arizona is going to this season. And Tommy, he's one of the guys that has looked at in terms of this guy really develops talent. He did that at Gonzaga underneath Coach Few. You could just name the list of guys that he's helped develop. But talk about the assistant coaching staff he brought in, because he brought in some guys that can help in that development.
Yeah, I mean, he really targeted it. Kind of felt like, hey, I want to have kind of every element of a coaching staff, which is what you're really striving for. But previously Sean Miller had a lot of recruiters on staff. I mean, that was his thing was, I want to be the coach. I'm going to be the one with the X's and O's. Where I need the help is on the recruiting side. And I need, coaches who are going to be able to hustle and go get those recruits and get the players and get the talent on the roster. And then, I'll work with them and we can develop them as a group. But it feels like he tried to kind of, like Tommy Lloyd tried to kind of say, I want to, have, the guy who's my right-hand man. I want to have the one with all the experience, and I want to have the one who's going to be the developer of talent. And Ricky Foyce comes over from the Phoenix Suns. He was their player development coach out in Phoenix. Obviously, brings that NBA caliber to college, and he has experience with Tommy Lloyd at Gonzaga. And he's going to be tasked with, bringing them along in terms of development. I think it's going to be a coaching wide type of thing. But I think a lot of the development and the work is going to come with Ricky Foyce and what he's able to do with them, on a day-to-day basis. And so I think there's been a lot of attention and focus on figuring out what these players do well and what they don't do well. It feels like, everyone's been responding well to what Tommy Lloyd brings. And his thing has been, I'm just going to tell you up front what I think you need to work on. You can work on it or you cannot. But I'm the head coach, and eventually I'm going to pick who's playing in the games. And it feels like, the players have responded well. And Dalen Terry is someone who Tommy Lloyd came in and said, hey, I don't like your shot. I think you could be more efficient if you change your shot a little bit. And Dalen Terry said, I went and changed my shot. And so I think it's that type of response is what you want. And so Tommy Lloyd's been doing this a long time. Ricky Foyce, I mentioned, has that NBA experience. Steve Robinson has a ton of experience. Coached alongside Roy Williams at Kansas, at North Carolina, two of the top programs in the country. I mean, there's not many other programs that you're holding in high regard like you hold those two programs. So he just has been through the experience. I think he understands what it means to be an assistant coach at a major program. And that's going to help someone like Tommy Lloyd, because as much as Tommy Lloyd has a ton of experience as an assistant coach, you're not going to have all the answers, and you're going to need some help to kind of work through some things. And, you're the last line now. You're the one that everyone has to listen to. And so I think that's going to help him having Steve Robinson. And then you have Jack Murphy, who's kind of the do-it-all type of guy who can recruit, who can coach, associate head coach at this point, has been a head coach himself. He has that experience because he was at NAU previously. And so I really like kind of what they've been able to do, even going down to beyond that. And you have TJ Benson running the recruiting thing, kind of doing things on that side. You have some of these other, staff members that it really feels like Tommy Lloyd said, I want to put together my staff in a certain way. And he went out and did that. And so I think all the pieces fit. But Ricky Foyce, I think, is going to have a very key job in trying to, develop this talent, because I think they like what they have and they like the starting point they were given as a coaching staff, but you want to see them get to another level. And with the way recruiting is going right now, they're just really slow to, add players. They're really hyper focused on, a select group of guys. And so they're not bringing in a huge class of 5 or 6 players. It's just not how it's going to work. And so a lot of the progress is going to have to come from within, and that's through development.
Yeah. And, Arizona's development and their strength of their roster and how the chemistry works out is going to be tested throughout this non-conference. I know a lot of Arizona fans that always talk about Sean never plays anybody. Nobody comes to Tucson. Well, this season, nobody's coming to Tucson, but Arizona has a game against Michigan, potentially, Illinois, and Tennessee, and all in the top 20. 2 of them in the top 12. That's going to put Arizona to the test.
Yeah, I mean, they'll find out early kind of what they're about. And I think they're going to take their lumps. I think it's going to take some time for Arizona to figure out who it is. And obviously, you're working a new system. You have a new coach and new pieces on your team. I think it's going to take some time for them to gel, but they'll know where they're at, early on. And if they can compete with any of those teams, I think it'll be a good sign for the future and a good sign for the rest of the season as they head into Pac-12 play. But yeah, I mean, it's difficult to schedule in college basketball. Nobody wants to go anywhere. Everybody is all about, hey, I'll play you, but I'm going to play you on a neutral court, or you can come to us. I mean, that's the thing, is like every program is open. Hey, if you want to come to us, come play us. It's just, it doesn't work. Nobody wants to schedule home and homes. I know Tommy Lloyd this week said that he's working on some things and has some big plans, in the works that eventually will get revealed. But, I think those 3 marquee matchups that you're talking about, that'll give you a good measuring stick of where you're at as a program if you're Arizona, and you kind of see where you go from there. Yes, it'd be great if those games could be in Tucson and be played at McKale Center, but it's just tough. Arizona's such an unknown, and no team was going to turn around and say, oh yeah, we'll go play you at your place. It's just, you don't know how good they're going to be. And like I said, I think they're going to be kind of a sneaky good team. I think they're a bit underrated. You don't really know. You don't know what the pieces that you have coming in how they're going to produce. And I think on the outside, it's unclear what it's going to look like. First time head coach, all that. But, it's going to be difficult to get teams to come here to Tucson. And so I think it's going to take a while for that to happen. It's going to have to be with the home and home series, I think. And obviously Gonzaga right now is kind of out of the picture because of Tommy Lloyd's connection to that program. I don't think he wants to play them just yet, but, and that would be kind of the marquee West Coast program that you want to play that's out of conference. So I think it's going to take some work, but eventually I think they'll get some big time home non-conference games. But in the meantime, you have a few, really strong games that you're either playing on neutral court or you're playing on the road, and it'll give you some experience if you're Arizona and figure out where you're at in the grand scheme of things.
Now, we talked about the point guard play and our concerns there. If you had to pick, and I'll do the same as well, one area outside of turnovers that concerns you the most, and then one area that you think they're going to be pretty good at, what would those two things be?
I think defensively, I just don't know. It's just kind of a mystery of what they're going to look like. So much of what we talked about this preseason has been based on the offense, and hey, you're going to go fast and you're going to score a lot of points, and the goal is to score a lot of points and not turn the ball over. Whatever we're talking about has been mostly focused on the offense. We really don't know what the defense is going to look like. Everyone's kind of been a little bit vague about it. We were able to watch practice, but it's, you don't really gather everything when you get a chance to see practice. And so we just don't really know what it's going to look like. And so I think right now, just based on, the mystery of it all, I think that's probably a big concern of mine. Looking at this team is you just don't know what it's going to look like coming off of a regime where Sean Miller, we knew what it was going to look like. We knew, he was very rigid in what he wanted defensively. You know what the pack line looks like. You know what the goals are of the pack line. It was pretty much the same every year, and you knew what to expect. And so we don't have that anymore. And so the focus has shifted from being, hey, we want to be the best defensive team in the country to, hey, if we score 100 points, that's a good game. So it'll be very interesting to see what it's going to look like defensively. And I think that would probably be one of my big concerns and kind of things I'm going to be looking out for early in the season. One of the things that I think is going to be, it feels like, and I could be off here, but feels like the shooting is going to be better than I anticipated. If Kim Aiken is able to do what he's shown he can do this preseason, that adds a different element. Benn Mathurin is coming back as, one of the top shooters in the Pac-12. If Kirk Reese can get going, if any of these guys can get going, if Pelle Larsson can get going from 3-point range, they have a pretty good shooting team from the outside. Dalen Terry, like I mentioned, has been working on his shot. So if they can, get a few guys going consistently, I think that's a big change from what Arizona fans have been used to. I think that showed up in the exhibition where he said, if they're pretty good defensively, they run fast and they shoot threes, that kind of looks like a pro offense right now. And it looks like the type of offense you see in the NBA where, they're draining threes, they're playing defense, running. That's an exciting brand of basketball. And so I think for Arizona, I think they're going to be kind of I hate to keep using this word sneaky good, but a sneaky good 3-point shooting team. It just feels like they're setting themselves up to be that, at least better than previously, where Arizona was like, hey, we have one guy that can shoot. If he's off, we're not making a ton of threes. That's what it felt like, in recent years. And so, Jamal Baker was that guy last season, last couple of years where you go, oh, that's their 3-point shooter. If he's off, I don't know where you get your 3-pointers from. So it feels more balanced. Feels like there's more guys who can shoot threes, and I think that's going to help them. And I think that's where I would probably feel really confident with them outside of everything we talked about offensively, where I think they're going to be a really good shooting team.
Yeah, I agree. And so I'm going to go into the one area of concern for me, and that's going to be rebounding. I know you have Christian Coloco, you have Omar Ballo, but I think team rebounding is something that is really unpopular with fans. People don't look at it, but if you're able to rebound the basketball, it fixes so many of your defensive flaws. You're not giving up second chance points. You're not giving up missed opportunities. So rebounding the basketball is going to be critical, in my opinion, because it's not the bigs that I'm concerned with. It's the wings. Can they rebound the basketball at a high level against tough competition? That's something to keep an eye on for me. And then a positive more, I think they're going to be better in this aspect, fast break points. We haven't talked about fast break points underneath Coach Miller at all. I think like we said before, they're going to be in a run and gun system. They're going to get up and down the floor. Defensively, they're going to have some holes, but I think it's going to be an opportunistic defense where they create steals, get out in fast break, and finish on the other end, whether that be a 3-pointer in the corner or finishing at the bucket. I think this team could kill teams in fast break points, which, again, critical in the game of basketball.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's going to be too many games that get, slogged down with slow play where you end a fast break just because you want to get in a half court set. I think there's going to be a lot of free flowing plays and guys flying all over the place. So yeah, it'll be very interesting to see kind of how this all comes together.
As you look at the conference, where in your mind does Arizona stack up against the rest?
Probably kind of where they're projected. I think, to me, right now, based on what we know, they're a top 4 team, which is kind of where everyone in the media projected them. I think the thing with that ranking, what it tells me is we don't know. We think they're going to be pretty good. They've been pretty good in the past. They're bringing back a couple, really key players with Benn, Mathurin and Azuolas, Tubelis, and we think they're going to be pretty good, but we just don't know. And so, time with Oregon State for that 4th spot in the preseason poll, I wasn't shocked by it. I think that's pretty accurate, at least based on what we know. But I think by the end of the season, I do think that they have the talent, based on what we've seen so far, to be a top 3 team. I mean, it's gonna be difficult to catch UCLA. They're loaded. They've been there. They have the experience now. It's gonna be difficult to catch up to them. But I think Arizona can be in that conversation for the top 3. Maybe you do kind of flirt with a conference title, regular season title. Maybe you do play well enough to kind of keep pace with UCLA and and Oregon, and maybe you can get into that conversation. But right now, I think I could make a case that they're better than USC, better than that team that's in the 3rd spot. So it'll be very interesting to see kind of how it all comes together and what it looks like. But to me, the more I watch this team, the more it feels like it's a top 3 team in the conference, which for a team that a new coach just inherited that had a lot of missing pieces and he had to go find, players to fill those gaps, not a bad thing.
Yeah, no, I think the key for Coach Lloyd is that he has Benn, Mathurin and Azuolas, Tubelis coming back, which were the top 2 pieces from last year's team. Usually when you have a coaching change, that doesn't happen. You don't get the top 2 players from the previous coaching staff, but you got the top 2 players back, added some nice pieces via transfer, decent recruiting class. I don't know how much they'll play, but you have a lot of good pieces coming back. You have a good nucleus. And you look at this conference, I think UCLA is going to win the conference. I think UCLA, like you said, the experience of going to a Final Four, all the talent you have coming back. I think right now the Bruins are the clear favorite to win the conference. But after that, I think you can make a case for Arizona being 2, 3, 4, somewhere there. Oregon would probably be my number 2, just because they've had guys that have been there, done that. They have a coach that the system's already in place. They know what they're going to be doing. But like you said, that USC spot at number 3, it's pretty open. I think you're talking about teams that have athletes that can get up and down the court. Who's going to be more disciplined at the end of the season? So I'd go with Arizona and then USC, just track record in terms of USC with their talent. But the top 4 in the conference, it's a nice top 4. It's better than the top 4 we've seen previous years in the Pac-12.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's a bad conference. I think there's been other years, obviously, where you feel like you can, if you're the Pac-12, you can get 7 or 8, teams into the tournament. Maybe that's not quite going to happen this year, but I think the top group is a little bit stronger than it's been. Obviously, you have UCLA, who's been, very well liked by the media and all the polls. It feels like that they've been part of. There's a lot of faith in them. I believe they're number 2 in the country right now, heading into the season. There's a lot of high praise and a lot of belief in what they're going to be able to do and what Mick Cronin is able to do out there in Westwood. And we'll see how it all works out. I do think the experience factor, the talent factor is going to help them. But again, I think Arizona is going to surprise some people with how well it plays. Obviously, it's going to be a different brand. I think that's going to take some recalibration from a lot of the coaches in the league going, hey, we knew how to play this team before. We're not really sure how to play this team now that just wants to run and just wants to go up and down the floor. So I think that'll be an advantage for Tommy Lloyd and people kind of filling him out. Obviously, they're going to look at tape of Gonzaga and say, okay, this is similar to what they're going to do, but he's his own coach and he's going to bring some different elements to things. And so it'll be, a fun ride, I think, and we'll see what happens. But I keep coming back to this. I think Arizona is going to surprise some people this year with how well it plays.
I agree. I think Arizona is going to be the sleeper team in the Pac-12 for everybody to keep an eye on this season. So Arizona kicks off its season Tuesday night versus NAU, 8:30 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, here local time in Tucson. But
Part
going
of
to
a
be quite
doubleheader.
the journey.
Part of a doubleheader. We got the women's
That's
team.
right. Part of a doubleheader. First time, I think Ryan Reynolds was saying first time ever. It's never been done before. Women's and men's same day.
The banner will have
check
to
the
wait though.
fact.
The banner unveiling for the
Yeah.
national championship run. Well, runner-up run. We'll have to wait a week, but it'll come and bring some excitement. But yeah, I think it's a really, I think, refreshing time for Arizona basketball on both fronts. You have a women's team who's really, really good and adding more talent and continuing to get better. And you have a men's team that's going through changes and kind of has a new outlook. So it'll be, I think, an interesting basketball season on both fronts and should be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I honestly can't remember a time where both programs had so much hype positively around it in a long time. I mean, you got to go back to the 90s when the women's team made I believe, Sweet 16. But outside of that, they hadn't been there, and they have this runner-up national championship run. Men's team, new coach, running gun offense, talent on the roster. It's a great time to be an Arizona Wildcat basketball fan in terms of just the potential of everything out there right now. So thank you for joining us, and maybe we'll do some of these throughout the season depending upon the game, but see you next time.